This is a Magic the Gathering card that you are not playing in your commander deck, but it shows that thinking twice can actually be somewhat painful. This is a card called Thought Prison, and it is a blend of both control and damage that is truly a one-of-a-kind. For 5 generic mana, it's an artifact. Imprint. When Thought Prison enters the battlefield, you may have target player reveal their hand. If you do, choose a non-land card from it and exile that card. Whenever a player casts a spell that shares a color or mana value with the exiled card, Thought Prison deals 2 damage to that player. I've planned to talk about this card for a while, but it wasn't until doing some research into it that I realized just how unique it actually is. I use several search parameters to search for cards that do something strikingly similar to what Thought Prison does, and there were very few results. First is that it's a permanent. Second, that the exile effect happens on an enters the battlefield effect. Third, that it reveals their entire hand. Fourth, that they are forced to exile at least 1 non-land card of any type. And fifth, that the card stays exiled with no way for the opponent to retrieve it. The results were shockingly few, and one of the only cards I found that's even close to it is one called Thought Not Seer. But even that one has a downside, because if it leaves the battlefield, the opponent still gets to draw a card. There's also Viscopa Confessor, but it's limited to black-white, and you have to pay a fairly hefty amount of life in order for the opponent to reveal their entire hand. So, how can we abuse Thought Prison's Enter the Battlefield effect? A card like Amanatu the Fate Shifter can flicker any permanent, so we can get repeat value from that ETB. Mishra Eminent One can make token copies of your non-creature artifacts. Or how about Osgir the Reconstructor? Imagine the look on your opponent's face when you're playing Boros and you bust out with 2 copies of Thought Prison playing Control and Boros. They're just gonna go crazy. And if abusing that wasn't enough, well, Thought Prison also has that second part to its text, which states that it can be consistently dealing damage to all players. Here's a guy I'm bringing up again in short order, Solfim Mayhem Dominus, which can double the amount of damage that Thought Prison deals out. I think this card has flown under the radar for so long because of that 5 mana value. And yeah, 5 mana value used to be a big deal, but now we've got treasures and power stones and lots of ways to get artifacts out for super cheap. And speaking of super cheap, even though this card has only been printed once in Mirrodin, you can get it for 25 cents. Super bargain. And that is precisely why